One of the best things Codemasters did with F123 is to include 3 bonus tracks. China, France and Portugal all found themselves off the official calendar for this year, but all are brilliant circuits in their own right, so it's great to see each one playable in F123 from launch. First up in this bunch of bonus tracks is China, and this is a track which has been up there as one of my favourite tracks for over a decade. It features an extremely fun middle sector, combined with a very unusual first corner sequence and one of the longest straights in Formula 1. This unique combination makes the track both enjoyable to drive, but rather tricky to create a car setup for. Do you opt for low downforce to prioritise that huge straight at the expense of downforce through the first and second sector? And how much do you cater your car setup for tyre wear, which due to the sustained corners can be pretty harsh around China? So let's jump into the aero setup and see what approach I took. Now I've gone with an aero setup slap bang in the middle with 28 on the front and just 23 on the rear. This is really designed to target front downforce, while also giving us decent straight line speed. The higher front aero allows the front of the car to stick well through the long corners such as turn 1 and 2 as well as the fast turns 7 and 8, but you will have to watch the rear of your car when exiting turn 12, as it can get a little loose if you accelerate too hard. If this is a real problem, I'd suggest lowering the front aero setup to bring a little bit more balance towards the rear. However, this will cause you to lose a little bit of time through sectors 1 and 2. For the transmission setup, I've opted for a 50-50 approach. I've set both the on-throttle and off-throttle diff to 50%, and this allows you to get the power down without too much trouble from the rear of the car, and the low off-throttle diff really helps rotate the car into turns 6 and 14. For the geometry setup, I've gone with a pretty old school approach of right, left, left, and this puts a big focus on minimising drag and increasing our straight line speed. The suspension setup follows most F123 setups with a stiff front of the car and much softer rear. This promotes a pointy front end that will happily turn into corners while the rest of the car remains compliant. Go with 32 and 10 on your suspension setup, then opt for a pretty high front anti-roll bar of 13 and just 3 at the rear. For the ride height, go with 34 and 38. Then for the brake setup, set the pressure to 100% and the brake bias to 56%. You can really get away with a higher brake bias around China due to the heavy braking zones. It may be beneficial to manually lower the brake bias once you exit turn 6 and turn it back up again just before turn 14. Now for the tyre setup, I've gone with a pretty standard setup approach which is slightly on the lower side. Set the front pressures to 22.7 and both rears to 20.3 psi. Now tyre wear is pretty even all around with this approach. And that completes our Chinese car setup for F123. This track's always been fun to drive, but does provide quite a challenge in a few different ways. The exit of turn 13 is without a doubt the hardest part of the track to master, but a gentle approach on the throttle and good discipline to not accelerate too early will see you through the race nicely. Let me know in the comments below where this track stands in your favourite track lineup, and also consider subscribing if you're enjoying these F123 videos. But for now guys, enjoy this setup and I'll see you on track.